Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and guests. Today I want to share with you a little bit of background and an employment law that I think is applicable to everyone in the room. Whether you're a hardworking American that puts in 50, 60 hours a week, or you're someone that runs your own business, or you supervise others, you need to know a little bit about this law. And this law that I'm going to share with you today is called the Fair Labor Standards Act. Okay? And a little bit of background is that it was written back in 1938. Now that was a long time ago. And when you think about that time period, it was right at the end of the Great Depression. Okay? People were desperate. People were desperate for jobs. They were desperate to feed their families. And what happened as a result of that is that some laborers or workers were really what we might call abused today. They weren't paid fairly. They weren't paid for the hours that they worked. And we had children that were working in bad conditions. So, the Fair Labor Standards Act was written as a result, and it's still active today. It's part of our legislation today. It covers 5 things. It covers minimum wage. It covers classifications of employees. It covers when you pay overtime. It covers child labor, and it requires requirements in terms of record keeping. You know, a lot of employees that I work with want to work their way up to fancy job titles. They want to become those managerial kind of positions. And titles become almost more important to people a lot of times than pay. They like to work into what we call exempt level positions. And with the Fair Labor Standards Act, that's one of the things that they defined. If you're exempt, that means you're exempt from getting paid overtime. And if you're non-exempt, any hours that you work should be paid, and you should be paid overtime for that. This part of the law is actually complicated in some areas, simple in others. Under this part of the law, there's really 4 categories of all jobs. And a lot of people think that it's company policy that drives this versus the law. But it's really the law. The Fair Labor Standards Act said we're going to group all positions into 4 categories. And they grouped them into sales and executive. Now those 2 we call tests are easy to apply. They're very simple. You're either you are or you aren't in that kind of thing. And if you're in sales and you visit outside customers, you're away from the workplace, you're exempt from overtime. You can work 60 hours a week and you're not going to get paid. But what is your weekly pay? That's what you're going to get paid. And usually there's commission involved with it. Where it gets complicated is in the 2 areas of professional and administrative. And there's lots of rules in this law that you have to apply. And it's the number 1 reason that employers make mistakes. They call people exempt and they don't pay them overtime when they really should be non-exempt. And the consequences are pretty severe. It can be fines, and it can be up to 3 years worth of back pay. So that's rather costly. And what's also interesting when you make that mistake is employees don't like it. They want to be in that exempt position. And they really are very disappointed and sometimes kind of discouraged when they find out, hey, that job that I thought was a managerial position really isn't when we look at the job duties that are underneath it. Another point that I wanted to make, and a lot of people ask me about, are breaks in lunch period. Are they required? Do we have to do them? What's the rules on that? And it comes from this law as well. The state has defined it ever so slightly. The rule is with North Carolina, you can not pay for a break period as long as it's at least 20 minutes and the employee must be resolved or not doing any kind of work whatsoever. I find in my experience this is where your best employees are going to get you in trouble. These are the ones that will sit at their desk and get caught up during their lunch period. And so they'll eat a sandwich at their desk and they'll work at the same time. and they feel like they really owe it to you because they're a committed and engaged employee, and it's their fault that they fell behind. But if they're non-exempt, they need to be paid for every hour worked. I have two real-life examples that I want to share with you of how FSLA can really kind of play into things. I have a friend who has a 16-year-old, and he wants to be a pilot, always has. So he's worked his way up, and he actually washes airplanes for a flight school. And he does this for flight time. I have another friend who works in an office environment, and she noticed that the cleaning crew was not doing a very good job. So she approached her employer and she said, you know what, I can clean this office so much better than they do for you, and I can do it for a cheaper amount. Just pay me a flat fee. Well, both of these things are probably in violation of the law. The first one, because that 16-year-old should be paid minimum wage. You can't exchange time and things like that. And the second one, really because that employee probably should be paid overtime instead of that base pay. Now, if you were to ask that 16-year-old or my friend, they say, hey, I'm happy with my arrangements. You know, this works for me, especially that 16-year-old. He loves that flight time. You know, but those things happen in real life. And I just wanted to share with you how easily you can enter into it. And sometimes it might be worth the risk. You have to decide if it is. Toastmasters.
Thank you, Cheryl. Very interesting. I appreciate that information. Doug?
Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, thank you so much for being such a supportive group and the Toastmasters that you are today. I obviously have been out of commission for the last couple of months and wanted to kind of let you know what's going on in my life and how everything's kind of got turned upside down and right side up. So I really wanted to start off in saying thank you, but wanted to talk today about my story in the last 2 months and how I have not been here because I broke my neck. I had broken my C7 vertebrae and bruised my spinal cord. So I'm very thankful to be just standing up here today. I want to talk to you about how I got through that situation, also the background of the situation, and how physical therapy is helping me throughout this entire process. Because right now, I can actually go like this and move around, up and down, maybe a little slower than used to, but it's getting a lot better. So I want to set the scene and how this all started. About 3 months ago, I was with my buddies. We were all standing around in the room, and my buddy goes, hey, so-and-so's getting married. We need to have a party for him. What did they call that kind of party? A bachelor party. And so that's when the discussion, so we were very secretive. We said, what should we be doing? What do we need to do? We try not to let him know. We wanted to surprise him with all the activities. And he's a guy that likes it simple, likes just to hang back, low-key weekend. So we decided to go to the lake. And we decided to surprise him with a slip and slide. And also some jet skis and just a good lake boys weekend. That's what he wanted, and have a nice fire pit and everything. So we decided to do all this. Well, we say, come on, Patty, we're going to taking you to pack with a couple clothes, and we're going up to the lake. And so he's all excited. We're driving down the road, and we're just having a great time getting up there. We get to the lake, and we start setting everything up. We start taking out the chairs, taking the towels out, the covers off of everything, and getting the lake house really set up for a nice weekend. The lake house that we went to is a friend of ours' house that is kind of like almost a shanty, so it's just a place to lay your head. It's really the outside scenery where you're looking out onto the lake is the main enjoyment. So we get this slip and slide in it, and we're waiting for it to arrive, and it's this big 40-foot slip and slide that looks phenomenal. So much fun, your inner kid comes jumping out of you. You're so excited to see this thing. And it's big inflatable, and they set it up, and we're getting ready and having a great time. Has 2 runs in it, so it's 2 runs just like these tables right here, and you go down and you go into a pool, and it's just an amazing, amazing time. We had a great time, and I loved every minute of it except the last 15 minutes. The last 15 minutes is when everything goes wrong, and I think almost anything we do, because that last 15 minutes changed my life. And we were waiting for the guys to come, and I said, oh, I'll just go down one last time by myself. So I did that. And when I did, I said, oh, I'm going to do a flip in the air while I'm going down the slip and slide. So I go and I'm sliding, and then I jump up and try to do a flip, and bang! I hear that crack in my neck, just lay there in the slip and slide, don't move. Try to feel my fingers. Okay, they can move. My feet, they can move. Tingles all over. My whole body's tingling, and almost like a sleep sensation over your entire body. But I can still move my hands and everything. And I'm a very lively person when it comes to friends, and everybody instantly knew that something was very wrong at that moment. Because that moment is when I broke my C7 vertebrae and bruised my spinal cord. I was very lucky to have friends there. One of my friends is an EMT, so he was right there holding my neck, and he helped me through the entire process. So they had to call the EMTs to come because they knew it was something was wrong. I said, no, I'll just walk it off because I don't think, I didn't want to mess up a good party. But we called the ambulance, and the sirens were, and you could hear them coming down the street. And I was like, oh no, but I could still move. And so I said I was trying to feel okay. And so they said, we're not going to move you, sir. Oh, the EMTs come over, and we're not going to move you. I said, okay, that's fine. So they put me on the board. I'm just like, I'm taped up to the board. Can't move an inch or a muscle at all. And they slip me off, put me in the ambulance, take me to the hospital. Half of my friends were there. Some of the friends couldn't join us because they might have had a couple cocktails that prevented them from coming, but they were there in spirit, and all my friends definitely helped me through that entire process. And it was one of the most moving times in my life because I realized the type of friends I had, that they really can get me through anything. I mean, I had 6 guys in a small little room that was bigger than two of these tables, and it hurt to laugh, but it was so much, it meant so much to me to hear them and laugh with them, but it hurt me, just literally hurt to laugh, but I'd rather have that than be in silence waiting there in the hospital. So I've been out for 2 months from work, getting back into it, obviously getting back into Toastmasters now. In that, time period of being in recovery, my wonderful wife was right by my side, got me through it all. Went to the doctor appointments. She had to help me even just get out of a chair. I was very thankful that even her work allowed her to work from home to take care of me. So it's definitely a moving time in that regard as well. So, but now I'm doing physical therapy, and physical therapy is a blessing in disguise. It has helped me in so many different ways. It has taught me that all the different parts of your body react to different things, and everything's connected in some sort of way. When you're at physical therapy, they're pulling. Oh man, they're pulling, and they're turning, stretching. It hurts, but it feels better afterwards. So today, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your ongoing support. I greatly appreciate everything that y'all have done and everybody around you. So, Mr. Toastmaster.
Welcome to the front.
Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I had the opportunity to provide an evaluation on Cheryl's speech, on the Fair Labor Standard Act. So Cheryl's speech was delivered as part of our Competent Communicator Manual. This is the third speech, get to the point. So it's 5 to 7 minutes. And what the manual asks for in this speech is to really focus on the structure of the speech. There should be a general purpose, a specific purpose, and then within it, we should have certain subpoints so that the audience can follow along quite easily. And in this case, I think Cheryl did an excellent job. The speech was very well structured. If we go back and we think about what we heard, we first were giving a general idea in terms of the human resource responsibilities that Cheryl has. From there, she went into some specific detail on the Fair Labor Standard Act, walked us through that, gave us 5 topics as to what it relates to, walked us briefly through those, and then went in and offered us a little bit of further detail in terms of diving a bit deeper. So if you think about it, what we saw was that we had a general topic, specific purpose, then we had subtopics, and then we had bullets underneath the subtopics. So in terms of the structure and hitting the mark out of the manual, excellent job, Cheryl. Thank you for that. I remember when I was younger and working in non-exempt positions, and so to go into that exempt position, I thought it was cool, but then I started doing the math, and I was like, wait, am I getting gypped on the overtime or not? So I remember those days as well. So when you brought it up and you spoke about how people aspire to that, I really related to that. I thought the stories you offered were great as well, particularly about the young boy and the flight time and how sometimes regulation, while it's meant in the best way possible, it does interfere and it can be complicated, and I think that was a great example. In terms of your body motion, I like the way you gestured. When you went through the rules, you kind of rolled your hands to really lead us to each one, and I thought that was very effective. In terms of things maybe that could have been done a little bit better, I would say that at the end of the speech, it seemed as if that a clean ending would have been nicer. It sounded as if you just ended it with the story of the boy, perhaps due to time. But to come back and say something to the effect of, so now in terms of the FLSA, this is an opportunity to keep in mind how it affects all of us, or just some kind of summary story there, or summary point at the end, just to really kind of bookmark it, I think would have been helpful. But really, no solace is necessary when it comes to your performance today. It was a great job.
Thank you, Brendan.
Brian,
Our second evaluator is going to be Kaye McGarry.
Brian, did you call for the
There I go again.
votes?
I appreciate it. Before we move any further, we had 2 speeches. Did those 2 speakers meet their time requirements, Grant?
Yes, they did.
All right, please tear off the little voting slip sheet of paper, pass that back to our voting taker, and let's make certain we get our best speaker today vote in. All right, moving back to speaker number 2 and the evaluation for Doug's speech. Our second evaluator is going to be Kaye McGarry. Kaye is a longtime Charlotte resident. She's done a lot of volunteer work, notably with the school board. She's an author, and she's going back for her doctorate in education. Kaye has some of the more advanced awards in Toastmasters. Kaye, welcome to the front.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, and especially Doug. Doug's speech comes from the Competent Communicator Manual. He's on speech number 6, and his title of his speech was, "Don't Go Breaking Your Neck." His objectives of his speech were primarily vocal variety. It's really balancing the volume, the pitch, and the tone. And that is what I think he did best in this speech. And I think the speech was well chosen in order to adapt to a vocal variety speech. From his gestures, which really enhanced, I think, his vocal variety, but doing the blow by blow of his accident was just, I felt like I was gripping on the end of a chair, listening to what would happen next. I think he did that very well. So that was the thing that I most liked about that what his vocal variety, it matched to what his objectives were. What could he perhaps do better in that speech? I noticed he had his notes here and he was kind of glancing down at them, but I don't think he needed his notes. I think he was confident enough, and obviously he knew the story quite well. He probably had all that time in the ambulance and the hospital and the recovery to go through every step of the way. So that was one. And the other thing I think I would mention, the flow of the speech, it seemed like you had enough for a 5 to 7 minute speech to end where you were, rather than put in before the ending the physical therapy part. It almost seemed like that was an add-on that could have expanded the speech. It could have been well incorporated, but for this particular size speech, it wasn't needed. And in finality, I really liked how he ended it. He kind of brought it all together with an inspirational tone. This is what family and friends, they got him through. And that, to me, just put it all together into a wonderful speech. Friendship and family, how important that is. So it was well done, and you look wonderful. I keep having things, broke his neck, he's broke his neck. How can you look like good? But it's welcome back and a job well done.
Specifically Brooklyn. So I could write books in terms of how many times people have bad stereotypes about New York. One of the stereotypes is that everybody doesn't talk like yous and you guys and how you's doing and things like this. I know a lot of people and none of them really talk like this, So I would say that is one stereotype that's certainly not true. Another stereotype that isn't true about New York is that people are rude. People are direct. People are sometimes short in their use of verbs and other words, but they're certainly not rude. It's one of the most helpful places you can go. If you run into somebody on the sidewalk, hey, I need to go here, do you know how to get me here? What train do I take? Sometimes you'll never get out of there. They'll tell you 3 different ways that you can go to where you want to. They'll give you bus routes, subways, they'll tell you where to get a good cab. So that's another thing about New York that I say is not true. So overall, Peter, I think that those 2 things, maybe some of the stereotypes in the way people speak, and also some of the misconceptions about how people interact with each other, those are 2 things about the place I was born that just aren't true.
You can choose whatever city you want to fly over for the afternoon. What city in the world would you choose to fly over, and why? Connie?
I'm very afraid of heights. I went up to the top of the Sears building in Chicago, and the building was doing this. I went to the top of the Eiffel Tower, like doing this. I couldn't get over here on the edge because it was going to fall. I was going to fall. There was no way. So literally backing up, holding tight, all I could do. I was in Colorado skiing, and my husband said, okay, let's go up the hot air balloon. I'm going, I can't do that. He said, sure you can. I said, I can't do that. I can do airplanes fine. Oh dear. We arrived at the scene of hot air balloon in Colorado, and I get on board, hands clammy, scared to death. I have the same sense as I have in an airplane. I'm going, man, is this cool or what? All around the mountains and just seeing all the different areas that I wanted to ski next. So if you've never tried hot air ballooning and you're like me who's still scared to death of heights, the sensation is amazing.
One more. Graham, I'm going to give you a second to collect your thoughts and ask Susan to maybe do the timing. So the
Okay.
question is for you, Grant. I understand that you are entering the real estate profession, is that correct?
Correct.
So the question is, I'm going to name a place and I want you to tell the group, why would that be a great place to live? And the place that you have assigned is on the banks of the Catawba River. Why would that be a great place to live?
Well, it's wonderful to be getting acquainted with this beautiful area, and I'm glad to say that I am looking forward to be a long-term Charlottean. So, the reason why the banks of the Catawba River are such a favorable place to live is it's beautiful there, and you have the opportunity to have a home that's on the water. You could have the opportunity to have a rope swing and swing into the water. You know, imagine also having a dog as well, to have as much room out in the yard as you'd like to keep you up till 2. And there's just a lot of very nice homes out there, and it's just a great place where you can get the beauty of the outdoors and the river, but also be close by to other options, and you know, have the city close by. So.
While Graham is walking back to his timer position, I'm going to recount the names of the people that did the table topics, participated today. And Graham, I just simply need to know, did everybody qualify for their time
Yes,
allotment?
they did.
Okay, so please pass your votes along to Susan, and that would be Susan, Brendan, Brian, Connie, or Graham. Mr. Toastmaster.
Peter. Thank you for those questions, Peter. All right. Will we give the vote counter a chance to count up the votes that have been submitted? Let's get a quick grammarians report. Connie.
I'm really happy to say, with the exception of so and so, excellent job. Excellent, excellent job. There were a couple of and uh-ohs, but you know, with new people, that is going to be normal. And because more and more we listen to it, and need to take this particular position as a grammarian because you're really active listening, and then that's when you really hear what people say. I was the expert until someone finally looked at me and said, Connie, if I know it already, why are you telling me again? And I'm like, but that's the reason why you have a grammarian, is to remind you of certain words that are just used not necessary. I especially love Cheryl, when she spoke of the inner kid. It was just, the audience at that moment, they were so totally into what you were talking about, and it was just really brought it home. But anyway, excellent job, everyone.
Next is the the general evaluator's report. We had a late minute cancellation. I filled in for the general evaluator. Somebody's car broke down earlier today, so I will be working on my usage of so.